Welcome to the Zono Sports Show, where you know Zonos. The FBI is all up in the NCAA's living room. We saw the reports that came out at the end of last week, going into this week. Now, does this threaten the NCAA tournament? All the revelations that have come out about pay-for-play scandals in college basketball. Well, multiple players and teams were indicated as having received benefits, whether it be through family, whether it be through dinners or this or that. The teams implicated and mentioned Alabama, Duke, Kentucky, LSU, Maryland, Michigan State, NC State, North Carolina, Seton Hall, Texas, USC, Washington. I could go on and on. ASM Sports employee Christian Dawkins, who is a sports agent for ASM Sports Group, is a former AAU figure. Now, look at this entire situation. There's a book that I bring up to you guys, which is probably my favorite book about sport in general. It's called $40 Million Slaves. Okay, I've referred to this book. If you haven't read it, go read it, by William Roden, the sports reporters, ESPN. Now, the conveyor belt system, that is something that Christian Dawkins was able to use to his advantage by being a former AAU figure. AAU is essentially the pipeline from high school sports and athletics to a college of that individual's choice. Now, what we see with the conveyor belt system is kids are identified early on based on their skill set, based on their behavior, whether or not they can make an impact at a big-time college program. So they are ushered through a conveyor belt style-like system and sent to the school based on who may be paying the most or based on who's offering the most. In its entirety, the conveyor belt is a way to essentially control the student athlete and profit money off of the student athlete. Now, Christian Dawkins, shame on you, because these boys should definitely be getting paid in the first place, but for you to do it like that and jeopardize their eligibility is a shame. Miles Bridges, he was one of the guys who was implicated in this investigation. He paid back $40 for a meal from an agent. I mean, $40 for a meal. I've paid that just by myself alone. You know, instead of taking a group out, you take a group out, you pay more than that. But $40 for a meal, I'm not going to sit a guy down on the sidelines because I say that's an impermissible benefit. Doesn't make sense whatsoever. Zoe doesn't think so. Now, Eric Davis Jr. from Texas, he was held out. Shaka Smart said that we thought it was the best interest of the program. Malik Pope from San Diego State, he was held out as well. Now, the biggest story of the weekend through this entire investigation by the FBI was the revelation that calls over 3,000 hours of phone calls were wiretapped through Christian Dawkins' cell phone. Now, among those calls was Arizona coach Sean Miller. Now, Arizona was exposed the worst, I would say, by the FBI because of the wiretaps coming out. And head coach Sean Miller is accused of having phone conversations discussing paying DeAndre Ayton, their big center, big freshman, I think he's 7'2" maybe, paying him $100,000 to ensure that he would sign with the Wildcats. Now, Ayton's parents have come out and said that, hey, we don't know anything about this. He should definitely be. His agent actually came out and said that they're urging the FBI and the NCAA and the school to clear his name because they said that DeAndre Ayton never accepted anything. And if you never accepted anything and your name is named in an investigation this large by a Federal Investigation Bureau or Federal Bureau of Investigation, I know the term, but I'm just saying an investigative entity, then you, of course, want your name cleared and you want to see some resolution to what all this is about. Now, also, in the wake of all this, Sharif O'Neal, top recruit for the Arizona Wildcats next year, son of Big Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal, has decided to decommit from the University of Arizona. Can you blame him? I look at this entire program of Arizona, and I look at Sean Miller and say, you've got a lack of institutional control because you got players that don't want to come to your school because of you're heard discussing wiretaps. You have a player who may or may not actually be eligible in DeAndre Ayton. I'm sure we'll find out more. You have Alonzo Trier who can't seem to stay off performance-enhancing drugs. And it's a shame because, we're both Alonzo. But still, Arizona's got a lot of things to clean up. They definitely need to bring in a fresh face. However, I think this will get worse before it gets better. Now, how do we fix the issue? Allow players to get paid off of their likeness. We don't even have NCAA anymore because EA Sports said, we can't make it because we're using the player's likeness. And Ed O'Bannon had the lawsuit. He was a former UCLA point guard. However, why not bring all that entertainment back into the fold and allow these players to make money off of what they're doing for an institution? It's like being an independent contractor. You don't have to pay everybody. We're not saying the schools have to fork up the money. However, it would be great if they would allow these players to have representation, such as agents, because of their talent and because of the jersey they're wearing and the way they're performing in that jersey, recoup money, some type of reimbursement from the funds that are accrued by them having that particular jersey on. So that's one way you can fix it. Also, the NBA needs to change the one and done rule. My proposal, why not sit up here and allow kids to say, hey, you know what? You can go right out of high school. If you do come to college, this is the cap on how much income you can make over a 4-year span or however long you're in school. And this is the cap that you can make within a given year as far as benefits go. However, if you come to college, you got to stay 2 years. I am all for that. And they can still have the NBA draft combine, but you're not eligible to go to the NBA draft combine until after your sophomore year. Then you have the option to come back for your junior year. If you want to go back for your junior year, you can go to the draft combine again. So that, I think, would be the best way to maybe solve all of this. But definitely, things have got to change. NCAA, stop cuffing that cheese and pass some over to the players. They're the ones who are actually making all the one shining moments that you so often play at the end of your NCAA tournament. Now, Andrew Jones, star Texas sophomore guard, was released from the hospital. You know, he was diagnosed with leukemia in January. He's been released for outpatient treatments, which is great news. In the NBA, Dallas Mavericks have all the drama in the world right now with the allegations of domestic violence for former writer for them, Errol Sneed. He was bad press for Mark Cuban and the Mavs because Mark Cuban actually kept him on as an employee and had him around the office when these allegations were expressed. And, you know, it's just a bad look for the Mavs in general. And then that compounded by the fact that Dirk doesn't like the culture of quitting. Mark Cuban had an interview where he was fined $600,000 by the NBA, had an interview podcast with Dr. J, and he mentioned that he thinks it's the best idea for teams to go ahead and tank because it gives you a greater upside in the future, allows you to potentially build a better squad. Well, Dirk Nowitzki ain't feeling that, all right? He's not feeling it. He's on the back end of his career. He wants to win games. At least he says he does. I think he's been chilling ever since he won that one championship. But, you know, to each his own. But I definitely think that if you're the Mavs, at this point in the season, Dirk, you might want to pipe down and you might want to allow this franchise to go ahead, rebuild, tank, and put your statue out front because you know your goose is cooked. It's about that time, Dirk. It's about that time. You used to be a shot caller, right? NBA, again, Kawhi, he's back working at the Spurs facility. Last week, they were far apart, Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs. Pop actually doubted that Kawhi would be back at all this season. However, Adrian Wojnarowski is saying that he could return in March. Now, that's a revelation considering all that we heard about how bad this quad injury was. You look at the Spurs team and where they could be if they get Kawhi Leonard back. I look at the scores at the bottom of the TV and I see that they're getting scored on 100-something points, 110 points, 120 points. That's not Spurs basketball. That's not team defense. You know, they beat the Cavs the other day. Yeah, I'll give them that win. However, for the long-term stretch in the Western Conference, you guys are currently the 4th team in the West. I think you're going to have to play a little bit better defense if you want to even come out of the West, let alone make it to the conference finals. But Kawhi being back, I think that definitely gives some comfort to the Spurs organization because they know that they go nowhere without Kawhi Leonard. LaMarcus Aldridge, he's great. Patty Mills, he's great. They've got a DeJounte Murray, he's great. However, you need a Kawhi Leonard just for the defensive presence and the compound offensive effort. Now, this weekend, OKC got drugged by Golden State. Russell Westbrook was hot. He's always hot. He's always got that mean scowl on his face, but I like it. My man's he's got something in him. He's got the juice. He's got aggression, anger. He plays basketball with a vengeance, and I love it. And especially when they play the Golden State Warriors. Well, this weekend, had his legs fell on by Jaja Pachulia, and asked after the game, why you even ask me that question? Don't you think it was intentional? Why you asking me that question? Why? And I don't blame Russell Westbrook because Jaja Pachulia, he has an extensive track record of dirty play in the NBA. He gets no discipline from the NBA for this. Now, NBA, how can you tell me a guy with an extensive track record who's also had run-ins with Russell Westbrook that happened last year where he ran him over and basically snatched the ball from him and stood over top of him? You see videos like that. How do you not say that a past transgression is not similar to a current offense? Now, Jaja Pachulia, I can remember Game 6 when they played the Celtics in Atlanta back in 07, 08? No, 08? And Jaja got dirty with KG, and him and KG went back and forth, back and forth. Jaja's always been this guy. So, NBA, how about you set a precedent by saying, dirty players, this will no longer be tolerated in the NBA if you intentionally try to injure someone. It can happen in the flow of the game, but if you intentionally do it, this is the penalty. And the NBA had their chance, and they didn't do that. So, Jaja, he will still be out running reckless and rampant among the masses and falling on legs and accidentally twisting arms and accidentally poking eyes. So NBA, we'll see what happens when you deal with LeBron James getting his arm snapped by Jaja Pachulia. I think that's what it's gonna take eventually. Now, NFL-wise, NFL and Roger Goodell, they are seeking $2 million from Jerry Jones for court costs related to the Ezekiel Elliott situation, which I said a long time ago. Jerry Jones, you need to stop it, drop it, and roll on to the next objective because Ezekiel Elliott will definitely serve some suspension time. Now, Jones also threatened litigation over Goodell's new contract, didn't want him to be the league commissioner anymore. I totally understand that. However, this public feud is definitely going to cost him some money. $2 million is a lot of cheese, but Jerry, he got it. He ain't worried about it, all right? Payback is a you-know-what, Jerry. Now, next show, we will definitely wrap mid-major tournaments this weekend. I look forward to watching them. My Murray State Racers, my grad school, they are the #1 seed in the Ohio Valley Conference. Let's go, Racers! If they make it to the tournament, I'll be there. Thank you for watching Zono Sports Show, where you know Zonos.